Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to another daily movie review. While we're wrapping up spooky season, we certainly are, right? One more day. One more day. What are we going to review on that day? I don't even know. It's going to be just as surprising to you as it is to me. Maybe there'll be a few reviews. Maybe I'll put out just a whole day, just reviews all day. But today we got a little double feature for you today. Today we're going to be talking about House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil's Rejects, uncut, unrated versions. At least, actually, I don't think there is is there an unrated version of House of a Thousand Corpses? I don't think there is. I think there is just the rated R version. Doesn't say it here on this Maple Pictures release of these two movies. You know, at least, hey, I'll say this. At least it's got the special features that you would have found, like the director's commentary, stuff like that. A lot of times when you get these kind of like those knockoff labels that just get like kind of reissue rights, and they dump out like the worst quality versions in like a pack or whatever, you usually don't get the special features. So I'm glad for that, because that's not always the case. But anyways, so I do have a history with these movies. I actually saw both of these in the theater when they came out. House of a Thousand Corpses, pretty hotly anticipated movie of my youth. I don't even remember when the fuck it came out. 2003. So that would have made me 16? 16? I was 16. I think I had just gotten my driver's license not too long before the movie came out. Or maybe, no, sorry, I take that back. I was 15. I was going to turn 16 that year. It came out in April. And I remember because I saw it on Easter Sunday. My buddy, actually Big Paul, if you've ever watched Zoobox Goes to the Movies, the big movie show we do, he was there. I had my cousin Mark was there. Yeah, it was a good time. I think Mark drove. He would have been the only one of age, I think. Yeah, I don't even know how we got into the movie. No questions asked back in those days. No IDs, no nothing. They're like, yeah, go ahead. Go for it, dude. I think I looked older, though. But Big Paul looked like a baby. He looked like he was 7 years old until he was 21. Anyways, moving on. And then The Devil's Rejects comes out a couple years after that. You know, obviously kind of in the bag for it. So I go to see that as well. I have to go see that by myself. And I even got in a fight with my friend, my high school buddy, because he wouldn't go, because he just, he doesn't like Rob Zombie, didn't like House of a Thousand Corpses, had no real interest in seeing it, and I just didn't want to go see it by myself. So I'm like, come on, man, come see the fucking movie with me, please. We were talking on Instant Messenger. See, like, listen, all these memories flooding back of this time in my life. Very interesting time in my life. Anyways, so yeah, back in the day, I really, really loved this movie back when it first came out, and for growing up a little bit. And now that I've gotten older, and I've seen it like a million times, I can't even tell you how many times I watched House of a Thousand Corpses when it first came out. Like, I went out and bought the DVD like the day it came out. Actually found a Walmart in the town that I lived that was carrying it like a week early. Somebody accidentally put it on the shelves, and back then they didn't have a system where that would get like earmarked and they wouldn't let you buy it. They let me buy it. I was super stoked. And yeah, so I just saw it a bunch of times. And I think a lot of that was at the time, because while I've always been a movie nerd, a movie fan, I didn't have the deepest well of like movie history. You know, when you're growing up, there's a select few of things. It's the things that are introduced to you that you know. So I knew things like The Terminator, The Thing, other John Carpenter stuff. Some stuff in the 70s. At this time, I'd probably seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'd probably seen a couple of the Freddy movies, a couple of the Friday the 13th movies, but I didn't have much of an awareness of kind of the deep well of kind of grindcore or grindhouse cinema of the 70s and 80s. You know, I didn't have that deep of an understanding of even what it was. So when you see something like House of a Thousand Corpses, which is essentially like a pastiche, it's very almost like Tarantino-esque in a way. Early Tarantino, where he was kind of just pulling from everything he had ever seen, you know, all of these influences, and he would just kind of throw everything at the wall. Maybe a little bit more successfully than Rob Zombie, but it kind of had that same kind of feeling. And as I've gotten older, and now that I do have that better understanding, the deeper well of movies that the movie is clearly pulling from, or the history that the movie is referencing. It has definitely gone down in esteem. I will say this. It is a fun movie, and there's a lot of fun stuff I think that works really well, even in a vacuum. Like, even just some of the scenes on their own. And if that's a complaint I have, I think the movie has a little bit of it's got a pacing issue. It's got kind of a coherence issue. It doesn't really have much of a theme, which makes it feel shallow. And that's what makes it really come across that, like, oh, well, this is just like you're just copying a bunch of things that are better than this. That's not to say, though, like I said, some of it really works. I think Rob Zombie being a first-time director probably is the reason for that. I think some of it shows. I do think even his dialogue is a little, dare I say, Tarantino-esque. Although, that's probably some of my favorite stuff in the movie. Anything with Sid Haig, Captain Spaulding. I love Sid Haig in all of these movies, but I think this is probably my favorite out of all of the three performances. He's in Three from Hell for a few minutes, but this is my favorite version of Captain Spaulding because he's a little more normal in a weird way. Yeah, he's a sick fuck and everything, but he's a little more normal. Actually, when I was watching it last night, I was like, I would love to see a movie where Captain Spaulding is like the good guy protagonist. Like, say you just took like the way his character is when he's like interacting with the customers, when he's interacting with the people, the victims, I guess. Who are they? What's his name? Rainn Wilson. The guy from The Nerdist, Chris Hardwick. Those two girls. I'm like, sorry, I'm blanking on the names. But anyways, yeah, when he interacts with them, when they just come to go into the spooky house at the gas station and their haunted serial killer tour or whatever, like, I wish there was just a movie where it was just that guy and him and his mongoloid buddy. Tiny. Was it Tiny? If it was just him and Tiny and they had to like deal with some shit, that would have been actually kind of awesome. A different kind of movie, obviously, but I kind of wish like he was the main focus, but not in a villain sense. I want him to be the good guy. I want him to save everybody. And the characters, while like, I think everybody gives okay performances. Karen Black, one of the standouts. This is an early Walton Goggins film, probably before he was even in The Shield. If you're a Shield fan, remember Shane? He was Shane in The Shield. But I would say that Sherry Moon actually is fine because that's her character is actually obnoxious. So it kind of works in the movie. So her limitations as an actress aren't as apparent, I guess, as they were later in other Rob Zombie movies where he cast her in the lead. Mostly Lords of Salem. She almost does a good job in that movie, but she just does not have the range. Anyways, but the characters themselves, though, even the protagonists, even like the victims, are not very likable. They're kind of obnoxious and annoying. And I think there is kind of that's done to a certain degree intentionally. I remember listening to the audio commentary years ago, and I believe Rob Zombie talked about the fact that like kind of part of the movie was almost this inversion of a trope. He wants you to kind of like the Firefly family more than you like the victims. Like, they're more affable almost. They have more personality. You just kind of want to spend more time with them, whereas the victim characters are like, oh, fuck these people. They're like kind of insufferable. Even at the end with the final girl, it's like, it's really hard to just kind of even invest in what's going on other than like the visceral nature of what's happening. And there's a lot of fun stuff in House of Those Corpses. I really like the production design. It's got a great, cool look to it. It's actually was supposed to be part of the Universal film family. If you remember, this movie got pushed back a bunch. So I think it was like filmed maybe in 99 and didn't come out until 2003. So I think it's just like a 4-year gap between when they made it and when it came out. Because I remember watching the teaser again at Big Paul's house. I think we rented Pitch Black with Vin Diesel And that's a Universal movie. And in the beginning of that movie, they had like this teaser for House of a Thousand Corpses, which actually had nothing to do with the movie. It was a teaser they specifically shot just to be a teaser, and it has nothing to do with the movie. I'm not sure if it was like a proof of concept or whatever, but maybe Universal had announced they were making it, because Hellbilly Deluxe had come out like a couple years before this, before like he made a deal to make a movie, and it was a big thing. So Rob Zombie was a name. You put Rob Zombie's name on something, it would probably make you some money. I think even House of a Thousand Corpses, being even for what it was, I think did okay. Like, it's a pretty low budget movie. It's a pretty modestly budgeted movie. But so while I don't like it as much as I used to, I do appreciate it. I think there's some fun shit in there. I think, like I said, the thing that really sticks out is the production design, especially. It has one of the creepiest things I've ever seen, in which I was kind of wishing that they had a little bit more of this angle on the sequel, is that Dr. Satan. Holy shit. When you see the real Dr. Satan at the end of the movie, legit nasty. Legit creepy. That's the kind of shit that gets under my fucking skin. And then it has this nihilistic downer ending where she doesn't really get away, and Captain Spaulding is the reason why, I guess. In some sideways sense, he's the reason why. But yeah, so it's kind of like a horror, almost fantasy movie. It's got a fantastical element to it. I wish it was a little deeper. I wish it was a little more interesting, honestly. I mean, Rob Zombie's got kind of like the Zack Snyder kind of dumb, jockish approach to metaphor and allegory. Like, he's trying to draw parallels to Alice in Wonderland in like the third act for kind of no real reason. Like, it doesn't have any like thematic weight. It's just like, oh, I see what you're doing. Like, oh, take the pill, you're the rabbit, you're going down the hole, now you're Alice. Now you're wearing a dress, so you're Alice. Like, it's a little stupid. I thought that was a little dumb, but hey, what are you gonna do? And so after that, obviously, 2005, The Devil's Rejects comes out. Like I said, saw it in the theater by myself like a weirdo. And I loved it at the time. And again, I think a lot of that love had to do with ignorance, film ignorance. Not to say that it's a bad movie. I don't think it's a bad movie. But it's really pulling from some stuff that once you see those things, it's just like, oh, it's just less impactful. It'll always be impactful in the sense that it's the first time that I experienced those tropes or those modes of filmmaking, that paradigm, whatever you want to call it. Because this one is much more of a grindhouse, a gritty, tactile grindhouse, 70s style flick, 70s style slasher. And they were like, hey, we really like the Firefly, so we're just going to follow them. We're going to make them into the protagonists of the story. And even though they're vicious serial killers, we're still going to ask you to kind of like them and empathize with them when they're in danger, which is interesting. It's interesting because it actually works, and I think a lot of that has to do with the chemistry of the cast itself. The cast itself is probably better than the actual story is, better than the actual movie. Because Sid Haig, Sherry Moon, Bill Moseley, they all come back, but they add some great talent to this lineup. William Forsythe, Ken Foree from Dawn of the Dead. William Forsythe, let me pull up a movie that he's been in. He's been in a million movies. Dick Tracy, Raising Arizona. He's like John Goodman's brother in Raising Arizona. Hilarious. Is he still alive? Good for him. He's still alive. He's awesome in The Devil's Rejects. I used to quote his shit all the time. What is it? I'll have you... something toe tagged in no time. Comprende? Nobody ever fucks with the king. He loves Elvis Presley, if you remember. So... they added a lot of good character actors to round out the cast, round out the experience. I think in every way, this is more... it's on a fundamental level is a better movie than House of a Thousand Corpses. It does hold itself back a little bit, I think. It doesn't feel like it has the strongest of identities. There is kind of something anonymous feeling about it a little bit. Like, once you know where Rob Zombie's getting this aesthetic, these kind of characters, these kinds of ideas, his authorship does not feel that present anymore. But that's a hindsight thing, In fairness, that's a hindsight hindsight thing, because when I saw it the first time, I didn't know that. I thought, like, fuck, this is Rob Zombie. I mean, it is Rob Zombie working in the same kind of way that Tarantino worked, except I think Tarantino maybe is a better writer. He's a little more clever. But there's so many memorable moments in The Devil's Rejects. I mean, the whole sequence at the fucking Roach Motel that they're at, the whole thing, like, with the country western family, the traveling band. I mean, that's still etched to my mind. I mean, that stuff is harrowing and disgusting and funny and crazy. I mean, when Bill Moseley is marching the two guys, the father and the son-in-law, like, basically off to their deaths, like out in the desert or whatever, and he's like, oh, I still got your wife's pussy stink on the barrel on my gun. Hope it doesn't rust the barrel. Like, that shit's fucking heinous. It's a little hard to watch stuff in here, you know. It really goes for it, and to Zombie's credit, you know, I've talked some shit. I've done the put downs I'm going to put down, but he does a decent job of balancing all of these tones. Because, like I said, it is a funny movie. It's a horrifying movie. It's a crowd pleaser. It makes you want to go pump your fist at the end when they're driving and Freebird's playing and they're all getting shot at by the cops. You're like, it's played like a big hero moment, a mythic moment, and he pulls it off. Much to his credit, he pulls that off, and I don't think that's something anybody could do. Now, seeing his later filmography, was that completely intentional? Did he do it on purpose, or was that like a happy accident that he was able to pull it off? Because ever since then, I mean, we're going to have to talk about this, guys. We're going to have to get into it. I have long since kind of defended him. Nothing like crazy. I'm not going to go totally to bat. Like, it was always something like, I get it if you don't like it, but I think what he does is interesting. And in some ways, I still feel that way, but he is an intensely mediocre filmmaker who's gotten worse over the years. I don't know why he's making movies still. He does not even seem like he enjoys the process whatsoever. I mean, 31 was awful. 3 from Hell, the capper to this trilogy, is fucking awful. It's an awful movie. And it's uninspired, and it feels redundant, and I just did not like it at all. I mean, I'm sure someday I'll revisit it, maybe. I've only watched it the one time because I was so like, fuck this. I'm so done with I'm done with you, Rob Zombie. Because what else did what were the last few movies he did? Yeah, he did 3 from Hell, 31, like I said, I didn't really like that. The Lords of Salem. I actually saw that in the theater as well. I saw Halloween 2 in the theater. I've seen a lot of his movies in the theater. Wow. But anyways, Lords of Salem was super interesting, and I was like, oh, cool. Maybe he's kind of like entering into this new phase of his career. He's going to do stuff that's a little bit more cerebral, a little less derivative. I mean, even though it's kind of pulling from, like, again, like 70s occult style movies, devil worship, witches, you know. So even then, it's not even entirely original. Or even like Halloween 2. Halloween 2, I wouldn't say is a good movie, but he fucking really does his own fucking thing with that movie. Whereas in Halloween, his first remake of Halloween in 2009, or is it 07? Sorry, Halloween 2 is in 2009. In 2007, like, that movie is really hampered by the fact that it's a Halloween movie. And then in Halloween 2, he just did not give a shit. I don't think he wanted to come back and make it, and to allow him to do it, they kind of had to give him carte blanche. He does all sorts of crazy weird shit. If you ever watch Halloween 2, if you've never seen it, watch the director's cut, because it is a better and different kind of movie. It's got the extra stuff in there is the crazy weird stuff that actually makes the movie interesting. So yeah, it's hard to know like how premeditated some of the Devil's Rejects stuff is because of his later career. He's always done interesting things, but I wouldn't say they're very good. And I would say that The Devil's Rejects is still the best thing he's ever done. It's the most cohesive, the most coherent. If I did have kind of one more criticism, I wish it was a little bit less grounded, a little more fantastical. Like I said, when we were talking about House of a Thousand Corpses, I really like the aesthetic of that movie, and I really liked some of the production design. I really liked the Dr. Satan stuff. Like, I kind of wanted to explore a little bit more of that world, that goofy, wacky, wild world. I was intrigued. I was totally intrigued by it. But alas, we got what we got, and like I said, it's probably the one you like. Most people like this one out of everything Rob Zombie's done. Most people say, "Oh, I like the Devil's Rejects." It's a weird movie too because it's very mainstream, but it is like a really brutal grindhouse movie for how mainstream it is, And I guess he's got to like give thanks, like I said, Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez. They really paved the way for this thing working in a modern or modern-ish market, I mean, what else was coming out in 2005? Isn't that when Tim Burton was doing like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? Let's look at 2005 movies. Let's have some fun. We're vibing, right? Movies that came out in 2005. The Corpse Bride, Hard Candy, The Devil's Rejects. Well, Land of the Dead. I mean, like Hard Candy, that was another kind of low-budget, surprisingly effective film. That's a little brutal. Red Eye, War of the Worlds. Oh, maybe we were in a little bit of a nihilistic time, I guess this would be into the beginning of George Bush's second term. History of Violence came out that year. Wow. Stealth. Sin City. Yeah, I guess there is some darker titles. Constantine, Lord of War, Brick. Good Night and Good Luck came out that year. Hostel came out that year? Yeah, so I guess maybe the zeitgeist or the country we were primed. The world was primed for something like Devil's Rejects. And I think Devil's Rejects is one of the first ones that came out that year in terms of this slew of flicks. When did this come out? Oh, it was a July movie. July 22nd. Okay. Big summer blockbuster. About serial killing families. Cutting people's faces off and dancing. Yeah. Good stuff, man. I bet you're probably surprised I haven't talked much about Bill Moseley. Everybody loves Bill Moseley as Otis. And I've always kind of was like, he's all right. Out of everybody, he's the most hammy to me. Like, Sid Haig is awesome, but William Forsythe in this movie, in The Devil's Rejects, he kind of steals the show. As he always does. He's a great character actor. I was watching, what was I watching a couple weeks ago? I didn't do a video about it because I fell asleep while I was watching it. I try to finish things before I talk about them, but he was, I think, isn't he in The Rock? Because I watched The Rock while I was away on vacation. Yeah. And I don't know why. He just puts a smile on my face. I just like his presence. Okay, get off my sack, man. I can like him if I want to. How dare you? All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to know more about Zoobox, leave a link in the description for Facebook, for Instagram. I completely fucked that up. You know what the spiel is. I was just like, I was thinking about something else while saying that as if it's an automatic thing. Anyway, also, thank you to Jonathan Littell. This was for him. He left a comment on the Vampires review. And listen, I'll do them. So thanks for watching, Jonathan. We really appreciate it. And I appreciate your support. Appreciate your time. So I hope this was entertaining at the very least. Especially how I just fucked that up at the end there. But you know what I was going to say. You know the spiel. I don't need to say it, really. Links in the description. If you'd like to make a recommendation, throw it out a comment. All right, goodbye. I'm done.